Welcome to Shop Talk, presented by Show Chic, where they always put the rider in first place.
Okay, so I told Michelle I don't really have a topic. I think a lot of topics have been covered. So I really want you guys to kind of throw some questions at me. Anything you want to talk about, let's talk about. And it's going to be about what you guys want to hear from me. So,
I'm ready.
Oh gosh, first question. All right.
It's not clear to me at all what is the selection process for Paris.
The selection process for Paris. Not that I'm that familiar either, but I think there's a deadline for when you apply, but basically you have to do 2 Grand Prix, 2 Grand Prix specials, and a freestyle. If you do more, you get 1 drop score. And basically, it's based off. When I was doing it for Tokyo, because the Grand Prix special was the test that was for the medal, I made that test have more weight. And I think, if somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, I think they're doing the Grand Prix as the one that's weighing it the most, which I wouldn't say that if I was in that position I would want it that way, because a lot of horses go different from the Grand Prix to the special. So I would want to know that my team had the special down really well, for sure.
But are the competitions, are there going to be any head-to-head?
No, there really will be head.
No. West Coast,
East Coast.
Scores?
Yep. And then they'll come to head-to-head when probably everybody, a group will go to Europe, and then there'll be some competitions more there. That group will compete.
Because I hear people talking about, and they're like, how do we do it? What do we do?
Well, they have to go on the website for sure. USEF. I mean, it's all in there. I have a hard time finding things on the website, but I'm sure all these young guys know how to run it real well. But it's all on there.
Explain the difference between the Grand Prix and the Grand Prix Special. You just said there was something.
Yeah. Okay. So the Grand Prix is it's very straightforward. There's you do your half passes. I would say for me, it's what separates everything for me usually are the piaffe, passage, and pirouettes. The extended trots, obviously, and the changes are very important, and that's for sure in the special, because it's passage. It's a very hard, long test for the horses. A lot of passage, a lot of extended trot. The pirouettes, when you come up center line, the first one's right now, and then you have to do 9 ones, and then you do your other one. So that's a really demanding test for the horse. And so the Grand Prix is, not that it's not demanding, but when your whole medal rides on the special, you need to have a horse that has the stamina and one of the other holes in a lot of them is walk to piaffe. And that sometimes isn't as clear. It takes them a minute, or some kind of hesitate for a minute, and then they click in, but it's a demanding test for sure. So there's a big difference in the two. Lyndon?
You work most exclusively with our very best riders and horses. What do you wish that they had learned thoroughly as young riders before they got to you?
Kind of what I had to go through, I mean, start from the bottom, work your ass off, clean those stalls, clean the tack. I mean, you can't be arrogant in this sport. It's a very humbling sport, and if anybody's looking for sponsors, let me tell you, that's the way to get them. You have to show people. You show up every day, you work your butt off, and they recognize that. And that's my story, and that's Adrian's story, and a lot of these people that have really good sponsors, that's how they found their sponsors. And it was somebody that I wasn't even aware that was going to be a sponsor. He was a good client, but no idea.
And what in their riding do you wish they had confirmed?
Well, just the basics would be really lovely. I mean, I see people out there really, I mean, I have to say, Lyndon, and I know we've talked about that, I think there's a lot of basics missing in our coaching today. And that, for me, that's it, you know. Then the horses, you have to know how to communicate with your horse. It's not just getting on and doing a movement. You need to understand how a horse thinks, and if it doesn't learn it the same way, you can't get on and take it personally. You know, there's so many factors when you're training, and it's got to be about, you know what you're doing. I mean, Lyndon, you have it. I mean, you give it to all the kids. You give it, and you are the reason we have some of these great riders. So my hat's off to you. You're amazing. And never ever get enough credit.
Is there one thing?
Well, tell me, lead me.
I'm trying to threaten my girls here. One thing that they better learn.
Well, God, I
They're
don't.
riding. And they're riding.
The contact, feel. Contact is my thing. I'm going to tell you, that is a thing. If a horse has a busy mouth, you can change that with good contact. You can ride a horse quietly up to the bit, and you can quiet that mouth. I can tell you for a fact, if you work hard at it, it can happen. But nobody wants to work at that. It's a lot of patience and time. But you're welcome. Yes.
What do you go to exercise to work on your contact?
Walk pirouettes, walk, a lot of the exercises in the walk half passes, downward, up and downward transitions that they get seamless, you know, trot to canter, canter to trot, passage to piaffe, piaffe to passage. Everything just has to become, it's all transitions. And if you have your transitions, everything will work in a test. But sometimes people don't ride corners well. They try to blow through the corners and then think they're going to, I see somebody laughing over here. Obviously, she's been told that. I mean, that's your only place in the ring you can really balance your horse and set up for a movement. So don't take those corners for granted. Like, use every inch you can get in there, because that really is an important place in a test, for sure. Okay.
So what would you say has been your most difficult coaching or teaching that you run into? Like, let's say you have a very talented rider, or maybe you see talent, or you work with somebody over and over and they keep missing something.
Yeah.
What's that?
Okay, so yes, I mean, I have many that follow in my head right then, but I would say a lot of times, usually the first thing I notice is the talent in the rider. A natural feel, a natural way of riding contact they might not even know. The way they just sit on a horse and they're in the middle, you know. But then the horse is equally as important. A lot of times you have one or the other. It's hard to get both. It's hard to get a rider and a horse matched up together. A lot of times you have a fantastic horse and the rider just can't quite seem to get it. Those are scenarios, and then the scenario where there's we have many great riders. I'm not going to say what I just thought. We have so many riders out there that don't have the luxury of having a horse that can take them all the way. And when you think of how many make it to the Olympic Games now, that's 3. How special that has to be. It's a very, very tiny group. But when I say that, I never want people to give up on a dream. I mean, there has to be something you do it for. Even if it's just to be able to get better, you gotta go for it, you know? I mean, there's no way you can say, I keep saying, I was 50 at my first Olympic Games. So don't ever say, when kids tell me they're getting too old, I want to smack them. Because you're never too old in this sport. If you keep yourself healthy and fit, and, you know, I would say, so yeah, you have both. You have a horse talented, maybe not as talented rider, you have the other. I would say, for me, I think we have a lot of talented riders, and it's just really hard to find those horses right now, especially. I think it's gotten harder over the years.
Is that because of price or breeding or?
All of the above. Price is definitely taking it out of the ballpark for many, which is very sad for me. But again, you know, you always want to buy those young horses that you see something in, train them up. And I tell people, you know, if you're doing it at that level, that's the problem with America. You can do many young horses in Europe and you don't pay that much. Come to Wellington, how many can really bring a couple of young horses? It's too expensive. So it makes it very difficult. America's always had the hard time of being recognized in Europe. We don't show head to head with them unless we want to go and live over there. They don't have the distances to travel that we do. And it's just, we've always had to fight. And I think it's gotten harder now with the quality of horse flesh they want to see, the prices. It's just, it's unfortunate, but you know, we have to make the sport great here. And we have to be happy with that, because honestly, I don't know how much longer the Olympics will have equestrian, and then we're going to have World Equestrian Games, and that's going to change it. You know, that could be the best thing that happens to us, in my opinion, is that it could go that direction, because it would give everybody a feeling that they have a better shot. So.
Thank you.
Yes.
What's your favorite Brentina story?
Oh, my favorite Brentina story. Oh my gosh.
Well, one of them.
Oh my God. I had so much amazing time with that horse, but I would say, none of you ever saw it, but I did a fundraiser for the Sun Valley Symphony in Idaho, and Perry Thomas had built, he called it the Brentina Arena, and it was out up against the mountain, and they put a 98-piece orchestra with the big shell, you know, half shell on it, and the whole orchestra, that was when I was doing Gershwin, and Alistair O'Neill, who was the conductor, he still is conducting the symphony there, but he said, you mean I have to rewrite this music and I'm a pit band for a horse? And then after it was done, it was so magical. We had it, there was a video done on it. I don't even think that anybody has any anymore. There was a limited amount. It was from Brentina, from Idaho to Athens. And, but we had television cameras that were following us along the wall. It was lit up at night. It was magical. It really, really was magical. And it was a black tie event, so everybody was there. And to this day, it still was one of the biggest fundraisers for Sun Valley Symphony, because it was different. You know, people wanted, it was just different. Nobody really comes to watch a horse in an orchestra. So I would say that was one of my favorite times, because it was also not pressure. So you can enjoy things a little bit more when there's not so much pressure on you, because that is a thing. You know, you can wish to be at the top, but being at the top is a hard place to be. You know, it takes forever to get there, and it's gone in an instant. So you have to, if you ever reach it, you have to appreciate every moment you have, because it doesn't last forever. And sad, but it still was worth it, even though I had ulcers and everything else. And but yeah. Oh, hi, JJ.
Can you tell us more about Brentina? Like, I know you got her as a really young horse, and that's just an amazing story that you trained her up from the beginning. And can you tell us a little bit about your training journey and what was she like?
Yeah, sure. She was purchased at the Fairden auction as a 3-year-old, and she was number 1 in the auction. She was a little chestnut mare, beautiful rhythm. You know, I mean, she wasn't one of these big power horses, but she had beautiful rhythm. And every day we watched her in the auction, she was the same. It didn't matter if they changed the venue, you know, they'd put flowers in the middle, they'd have all these other things going on. And she came out the same every day. And so Perry said, I think we should try to go for that one. And I'd sat on her, and after I got her home, I realized why I felt what I felt. When I got on her, I thought I felt this little hump in her back, but they had a rider on her first. So anyway, I loved her. I mean, she was so, I could tell, the one thing being 5 foot, when you try these horses, the one thing I want to know is, can they feel my leg? Like, do they even recognize that they have somebody up there? Because sometimes horses are big and kind of dull, and then that isn't going to work. So she was supposed to, there was one other buyer. It was, oh God, I want to say Christine Stukelberg. It wasn't Christine Stukelberg. It was, who was the other short little rider that rode in those times? It'll come to me. But anyway, there was an accident on the Autobahn, and she didn't make it in time. So we got her, which would be in today's price, for $20,000. Those don't exist anymore. But got her home, and she was a little bit cold-backed. Like, it was really interesting. And to the day, I said, even if she could have been ridden at 32, I would have drugged her to get on her. Because after sitting without a saddle on that long, she broke Ruben's finger trying to put her girth on. She was a tough little mare. But once you were on, she was perfect, absolutely perfect. But she had that one little quirk. You know, she definitely had a cold back. But we trained, I think the U.S. will, especially the West Coast, saw her go from first level all the way to Grand Prix. I think she probably was champion at every level she did. And when we finally thought, I mean, I didn't have a vision in that time of really Olympics. I had I wanted to be the best I could be and try to maybe go show in Europe or something, but that was not on the radar at the time. And then we made it to the Pan Ams in '99, and she won the gold individual, and we won the team. And that was the day I realized, when she went in that environment, that she was special. Like, I knew then I could trust her anywhere, because we thought alike. Like, at the end of her career, if you came around the corner and you knew the passage started here, I just looked beyond it, because if I looked at it, she started it. That's how tuned in she got with me. It was truly amazing, a horse of a lifetime, no doubt about it. But we had some wild, fun times, sad times. Flew her over for the World Cup. I think it was going to be in Stuttgart. No, not Stuttgart. Oh my God, help me out here, people.
What year?
Huh?
What year?
Oh God, don't even ask me that. No, I can't. I mean, you can't even ask me what I've done in my career, because I can't remember. But anyway, we got there. She flew there. We found out after she landed that the pallet she was on slipped off the thing, and the pallet fell off on the tarmac. And we didn't know that till after she had landed in Europe, and she showed up with a huge leg behind. And no, because they're just people that ran the machinery. You know, I mean, they're not horse people. And so she flew all the way over there. We got there, and we had to just go watch the other members go, because we couldn't show. And then she had a couple of injuries through her career, but she was one. I walked her to Athens, basically. She had an injury leading up to Athens, and the way I kept her fit was walk. And when I think I did my first canter pirouette a week before Athens, but they knew, the team at that time knew that mare, knew she was solid, and knew if she was sound that she would go in, and she was amazing. We finished 4th individually. Just, God dang, missed it. But it was, yeah, I mean, she was that kind of a horse. You could just rely on her. She was just amazing. And then when she retired, I sent her to a really lovely place in Santa Barbara. And what I loved about it is they were really special people. And I just knew that she would still run the show. She'd tell them when she wants to eat, and she'd tell them all those things. And she lived there till she was 32. And she had a view of the ocean in her paddock. And when they buried her, they put an apple tree there. So she's still on that property. So it's a very special. If you can give a horse a great retirement, it was certainly where she needed to go, because it's too hard to take a horse when you're on the road all the time and you want to retire him and give him a special life. And she was definitely worth having a special life, for sure. But other than that, I mean, it was a magical time, really magical time. I had a couple other horses I was riding over in Europe as well, but they weren't so easy. I had a horse named Felix that was, oh my God, you remember him, right? Holy moly. He was a firecracker. I mean, a firecracker. And when he started to get hot, he would throw his front legs like I could see them on top. And then they'd come up here and then he'd almost like strike the ground, like he'd get so excited and going down center line. So he never ever had that really top mentality to take it all the way to an Olympic Games. And then I had another one, Donatello, that was a very special horse. Had too much pressure in the auction at 3. That's where Perry bought all his horses, because he loved the auction. And so we went there, and it was good times then. You know, you could try them and you saw the real thing. Now I think it's probably changed a lot, but in those days you really could kind of know. But he ended up basically having like a nervous breakdown when I'd go to some of the shows. He just had a meltdown, and so he ended up retiring as well. And I've had several. Beau Rivage, my very first one that ever did, he wasn't much, but he went to the World Cup. And that was when we had the North American Championships, remember those? And it was in Maryland. And it was like whoever won got to go to the World Cup. Well, we won. And I was so not ready to go to the World Cup. I mean, it was like, you've got to be kidding me. I mean, it was like, it was 98, and I can remember we went there, and I was working with Klaus. I'd barely just started working with Klaus, but I was working with Klaus. So we got there. It was in Sweden, Gothenburg, Sweden, and I can remember looking around and going, "What? You do not even know what you're doing here. Like, why are you here? You don't belong here. You are just like," and so I schooled him. I guess he schooled as well as he could. You know, my goal going was to not finish last. And our son went with us, and at that time he wasn't very old, but he was already a little hockey player, kind of a tough little dude. And Klaus came the first day to school me, and then he got deathly ill. So I didn't even have a coach. So my husband, who knows nothing, said, "I will stand at the ring. I don't want to hear you talk back to me." He said, "You just do it, and if I say anything, you just do it." And I go, "You don't even know what you're," he goes, "Just do it." And so we went in the ring with that, and the first day I finished dead last. Oh, no. So I wanted to put my head in a hole, and I cried, not in front of public, but I went back to the hotel, and I thought, oh my God, this is the most embarrassing thing you could ever have. I just don't think I can continue. My son walks up to me and he goes, "Mom, get your head in the game." He said, "You know what I do when somebody knocks me down?" He says, "I take them out at the knees." And I go, now my kid at his age tells me how to do it. I better damn well get back out there. I can't do that. And I finished second to last. Thank you very much. So I have bad, stories that it wasn't always rosy, but that was a good story too, because that was really, my son made me get back in that ring. So, yes.
Did you have a system that you did before you competed? The morning of, the night before?
Yes. So we always got the horses out a little bit and just loosened them up in the morning. But then I would go to the ring before the show would start, and I'd sit at the end and I would visualize every single corner, every single thing in the ring that I thought might go wrong, or she might look at this or she might not. So I could be mentally prepared to react in any way I could. And I think that visualization is really important, because I think you really can get your head in a spot where you're already in a zone before you ever get on the horse. Because if you don't do that, then you get on the horse and you kind of have this little bit of anxiety going on, like, oh my God, I'm going down the center line at the Olympic Games. Like, that's a pretty scary feeling, But I did that from the beginning, Lyndon. Sue Blinks helped me a lot. Sue helped me a lot with that. When we were in Jerez, I said, I had lost my mom on 9/11, so that was just the year after. So I was going to be competing on that same day, and I was like a wreck. And I said to Sue, what do I do? And she said, told me how to breathe, all the breathing exercises, and it really did help. I learned about rescue remedy. I learned about, I tried everything, but I would say Sue helped me a lot in that. And the visualization came from a very wise lady I knew that did it when she was an ice skater, and she did that in ice skating as well. And they're pretty comparable if you think about it. You have to have your head and knowing what you're going to do where, and so, but I would recommend that to people that, don't just go in blind and, think about doing your test. Like, really try to study everything about it and anticipate anything that could happen. And it makes me think of a lady I was helping at the national show just last show, and the horse spooked in the corner, and I went, you weren't watching at all what was going around the ring, were you? Because if you had, you would have been prepared for that to happen, because she was so focused on looking at her horse that got her in trouble. I said, you better start looking at the world, because there's a big world out there and a lot of things can happen. If you see a tent flapping, man, you better be prepared. Have your leg on a little bit tighter on that inside, saying, don't you jump off that rail. You just have to be prepared for anything. So that helped me, for sure. Yes?
Is there anything outside of horses that you tell your riders to do, like watching videos or fitness or anything?
Oh, fitness is a big thing, for sure. If you expect your horse to be fit, you better damn well be fit. And I'm really strict about that. That's not okay. These horses are athletes, and they need to be ridden by, you don't have to be an athlete but you have to be, fit, healthy, can keep your, if you're coming out of the ring and you can't breathe, either you're not fit or you're holding your breath, which that happens a lot too. So, yes, being fit is a big thing. And I can tell you today, Adrienne videos every single ride she rides, and she will watch them every single night. And if I helped her that day, and I'll say, I know what you're feeling, but when I see it looks like you might need a little more left rein, I'll get a phone call that night. She goes, damn, I need more left rein. You're so right. But, you have to be that dedicated to watch yourself and critique it. Like, you need to know, did that coach see what you see now when you're watching it? And do you also see places where you could help the horse, or, it's just all sorts of things like that. And really I'm really, stickler about saddle fitting and rider fitness. Andy Thomas, we got the pleasure of working with Andy Thomas, who was our guy that went to the teams with us from England. They'd done all this research about how you sit on a horse. Everybody's weak on one side and strong on another, and how that can affect, if you get an 8 on a half pass left and get a 7 on the one to the right, there's a reason, and it's usually rider. And it's usually the saddle fitting and the way the rider sits. So he worked with the riders actually physically before they got on, and gave them exercises to fire up a muscle that was not working, that he could get it going. And he had lots of techniques, and I think he was a big part of a lot of our success, because he really was on the girls and about that, for sure. And so everything, it's everything from, how the rider is, knowing your horse. You better know when it needs vaccinations, shoeing. I mean, you don't just show up and get on. You better know that horse inside and out. And that's it's everything. It's everything if you want to take care of these horses right. And they damn well deserve it, because they're amazing animals, for sure. For sure. We're lucky that we can do what we do with them.
What would you consider the ideal mentality for a top level horse?
I think one that actually can go under pressure. I'm not even talking about a horse that's a good mover. I mean, I'm talking about a horse that's just a stellar citizen, I think that, for me, it needs to be a little hot, and the riders need to ride that and not be afraid of it, because to have a Grand Prix horse, you have to have a horse that has a little fire. And so I want it to have a little fire, but be very sensible. That would be ideal for me. Yes, you had one.
Going along the theme of older riders,
Mm-hmm.
what is your preference at this point? Like, are you riding horses you have fun with? Are you riding horses you're trying to sell?
Sadly, I can't ride anymore.
You can't ride anymore at all?
No.
Oh.
No, I'm completely broken.
Oh.
I've had 4 shoulder surgeries. I have, my lower spine is a mess. And I tried, I think the last time I rode was probably 3 years ago, and then I was having steroid injections, and my body just won't do it anymore. It kills me. And I'll always say, God, I just want to sit on that. And so, I work with the riders, because I have to say, okay, tell me what you're feeling, because I'm going to tell you what I see. It's important. And I can tell you this, because I love what I do, I still feel like I ride after I finish my day. I still feel like I'm exhausted after 10 horses. I mean, I go home and I don't even want to go to the gym. I'm exhausted. I've worked all day, ridden 10 horses, for God's sakes. So, I think if you love what you do and you can't ride, you still can have pleasure in that if you coach, for sure. So I've been very fortunate that way.
Yeah, and just you work a lot of years with Klaus Balkenhol, and you same with that, being over there and working with the Europeans.
That's huge. That was huge, and that was he's a master. I love that man, and I mean, if I had that chance to go back and train there with him, I'd do it in a heartbeat. Just the kindest man to the horses. He his barn is set just outside his house, and he walks into the barn, and every single horse is screaming at him because they want treats. He'll go in a horse's stall if it's laying down, and he'll lay down with it. I mean, he is a real genuine horseman, and I think I appreciated that just as much as his training. And he's very fair. He knows how far to push a horse, but not too far. And he's taught me everything. I would say he is the reason I've gotten to where I've gotten, is because of Klaus Balkenhol. So I have the utmost respect for that man. And thank you for bringing up that, because you sometimes forget about those, but no, he's amazing. Yes?
Back to Klaus, you were pretty successful when you started working with him. What would you say were the 1 or 2 major things that he changed in you when you started working with him?
I would say that he was a stickler about being precise. You had to know exactly how long to collect for the pirouette. Not too long, but just long enough. You had to know the exact moment to start rotating it. You had to know when to start your changes when you came out of a corner. You needed to, everything about the man. How to keep a horse fresh and happy. He was the quickest man I've ever seen when he'd say, just bring the horse back and cluck. And you bring it back and cluck. And if it didn't fire up, he'd say, now smack it one time. And I'd go like that. He goes, no. He goes, you just bam, smack, and then pet it. Say, good, now speed up a little bit. The way he got into a horse was never vicious or mean, but it got that point across to those horses. And I don't think any one of our riders that went there didn't feel the same. I think everybody that had that opportunity loved every moment of it. And truly, some of the most success we had as teams was when Klaus Balkenhol was involved, for sure. Just a wonderful human being. Yeah. So, yes. Hello.
So I was just going to kind of go on that theme of, Balkenhol helped the U.S. so much, and you had a lot of success as a team coach getting part of the U.S. and claw our way up onto that podium. What could you suggest going forward, being able to look back at what you know now, would help our teams to stay, to have that staying power?
Yeah.
Maybe not kind of like in Germany, but something like that where
Yeah.
you're expecting the U.S. to be.
Well, I think times have changed so much. There's not just one coach. They have many coaches, and some are your friends that are coaching, and I'm not saying anything against that, but is your coach really your friend going to tell you that's shit? Probably not. You need an eye to come in that's going to be honest with you and upfront and say, this is how it's got to be. And I think that for me, we lack that a little bit. I think right now, I think they're in a little bit of, they don't know kind of where to go right now at the moment, to be honest. I hope they can figure it out. But it's sad even when they had applications out. It was just sad that there weren't any real qualified that have been like a Klaus Balkenhol or, would come up and do that again. So, it's sad times, and I think it's become very individual. You know what I mean? Like finding somebody that clicks with you and that you trust and can take you as far as you want to go. And then having enough of those coaches. That's also not so easy to find that have done that, been there, done that, and can help you get to it. I think the coaching program is not as successful as it should be. I think that we've got to get to a place where we almost need to have, like Europe, you need to be licensed to coach. Because without that, then we just don't have always the right basics, like you said, Lyndon. I think there's a lot of coaches out there, that the younger ones, more than probably the older ones like me, but that kind of went into building a business probably sooner than they probably should have. And it's not anything against them because they have a thriving business, and that's America. But in Europe, you can't do that. You can't open a business like that and not have a license. So it's very different here. And I think all those things make it and we're a huge country, and not just one coach can do it. That's another problem. And for me, the most important program we have is our developing program. And I did that, and it was hard as one person to get it done. They need to get to a place where they can say, okay, we have 2 of this and 2 of that. I use Johnny and Monica, the coaches in Germany, and Isabel, all of them ride at the shows with them. Do they ride all the time with them? No. They have coaches, good coaches, but they trust their eyes when they're going down center line at a top show. And that's the difference of mentality, I think, what it takes to be that top rider, is to have that and know that you need an eye that's going to be honest and say, if you want a 9, this is what it's got to look like. If you're happy with a 7, okay. But that's where it comes down to when you start riding at that level. It's numbers. It's like you have to, in today's sport, they're already saying you're going to have close to an 80 to even stand on the podium. And in Tokyo, we had to have a 77. So that was, a super highlight. But it was, and I think a lot of that success was because of COVID. Nobody rode head-to-head together then. So the judges, and I'm not slamming any judges, this is just my feeling, is I think the judges hadn't seen a lot of people head-to-head. And I think when America went down center line, it was a different way of riding, and it was all done very well. And I think they really appreciated it. And I think that's why we were lucky in Tokyo. But it'll be hard now to duplicate that again, I think, right away, unfortunately.
Thanks to your efforts and so many wonderful people, the pipeline has begun. And
Oh, yeah.
So many great
Well, thank you.
programs are existing now. But could you speak to the system in Germany in terms of, let's say, a 14-year-old girl is looking?
Oh my gosh,
What is their education?
it starts when you're riding a pony. I mean, it's just part of life. These kids are on ponies with a side rein on, so they don't have to yin-yang heads, because that's a problem. The judges want to see the heads down, and the kids can't do it, so they get in habits this way. Nope, not in Germany. They have them down in a nice little side rein, and they're going around in an ec class. I mean, they're doing that at 6, 7 years old. I mean, and it progresses. They have programs all the way through. It is, I mean, it's a system. You know, we tried to get ponies going here, and it's just didn't ever fly. You know, we just don't have the interest. The parents don't really want to buy a pony because their kid's going to grow out of it in a year, and it's expensive. So, I mean, I get all that, but it's hard, you know, when you have countries that are growing up that way, it's hard to be competitive in that field for sure. But we've done well, and we will continue to do well, but it's work for sure. Yes?
Do you think it's important for someone who is striving to be at the top to experience things over in Europe?
I think if you know who you're going to. I don't recommend going and just trying to go to a barn and then get stuck on a bunch of young horses that they want to break, you want you to break because they don't want to break. Or, I mean, you need to know who you're going to, and it's always better to go with a horse if you have one, because going there and being able to ride those horses isn't always so, you know, consistent. Maybe you do it one day, you end up just kind of working more in that, but that's not bad, but you've got to be able to experience it on a horse that you can train, you know, not just take a lesson on one that it's very beneficial when you have that opportunity to go and train with somebody. And you have to stay long enough that it works. You know, you can't just go for a month, you know, like you need to go, like when you could only be out of the country 60 days with the mares and stallions. It's still that way right now, but they're trying to change it. So we could never go for more than 2 months. But Klaus was always coming over to us. So there was a lot of consistency that way. But going over there to compete was critical. Like Klaus put us in shows in the beginning that were good shows with good judges, but not in the big league. We were put in other sections of Europe to start, which gave both horse and rider confidence. You're not thrown right in with the wolves, you know. And I think it's you need to really find that person that is going to do that for you, you know, really give you that opportunity. So yeah, I mean, if you have the right opportunity, yes, go for it, because it is really an experience. Yes?
Other than the fact that you love it, why have you chosen to go with this journey? Or
Have I gone-
In other words, what's your spiritual approach to this?
With what? I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Repeat the question.
Other than the fact that you love it, why have you chosen to go down this journey? In other words, what is your spiritual approach to this sport?
I'm addicted to it. I thrive it. I mean, I sickly love it in a way that I get so stressed. Like, if I think of my riders going already to the Olympics, I need a prescription for Xanax right now. Like, but I thrive on that. I love that. You know, that's what keeps me going. So I don't even know how to answer that other than it's an addiction. Anybody else? Okay.
Yep. So we've kind of gone away from the Festival of Champions, like Gladstone. Do you think that that's a good thing or a bad thing?
The what champion?
Like Gladstone.
USC
Oh.
The Festival of Champions, but that goes out to late like that.
You know, it's not like it used to be, because the better horses are in Europe. So it used to be when it was at Gladstone and stuff. I mean, those were special days. And I think that it would be nice to bring our championships back here where we had our top horses, but I think it's now so important that they go to Europe. It just doesn't work. So I do think it's still important though, because I think it gives the other people a chance to, you know, have that moment of feeling like they've accomplished something and not in the ring always with that other level, you know what I mean? And then they get to that next level because they've achieved, you get better with success, you know, it gets under your skin and you just want more, you know, and then you look for better situations to put yourself in, and that's what I think, you know, you end up needing, everybody needs to think about, you know, what kind of situation you're in, how far you want to go, are you happy, are you doing it as a sport, or is this your life, you know? It's different for everyone, but as long as everybody takes care of their horses, I don't care. I mean, that for me, that's part of what I do. I do it because I want the horses to be happy doing it. I don't want to see horses getting, you know, whipped around and yanked around, and, you know, it just doesn't work for me. So that's a big part of why I also do it, because I want to try to make sure the horses are taken care of.
Festival used to be the selection process.
Yes.
For teams.
Yeah.
Which was nice.
But see, now we have to go head to head because we don't have that opportunity to go head to head with Europe. So we have to go to Europe.
For the point system, right? You have to have.
Well, if you want world rankings, and that's how they do the draw. I mean, so like the Olympics is that was huge. You know, having riders that were in that top 50 was a big deal. But it's a messed up draw. I mean, none of us could figure it out when we were there. It's odd and even, and you could be at the top and still end up going on the first day. I mean, it just didn't make sense to me. But they love it, so that's going to stay that way. But yeah, it's sad that I can remember I had wonderful times at the Festival of Champions. I mean, I can remember those head-to-head competitions there. It was wonderful. It was fun times, but things change over the years, and because we have been competitive now means that you have to go over to Europe to stay there. Otherwise, they just don't recognize you the same. And it's hard enough when you can't go just as little as we go. But, you know, you put in your ride well and everything, and you will get, I mean, they will give you the points, but you have to earn it for sure. So, but I don't know.
Is there any other experiences that you think are essential in kind of like helping bring up young riders like us?
Go to a barn and watch some good training. Most barns will be open. If they're not open, I worry. So, you know, if you like want to see some riding at some of these barns that you kind of look up to these people, you just text them, whatever. I can guarantee the doors will open. You're welcome in. And I think that's really worthwhile doing, because I don't know too many riders that aren't visual. I think when you watch it, you can become very visual learners. And I think that's also very important. If you want to become a coach, you need to be visual. And so you need to really watch what's going on out there. Listen to some coaches coach. You know, that might be your life if you end up like me and you can't ride and you still want to be involved in it, and you can still have a good life and enjoy it. So for me, it's a very visual sport as well as physical. Yes?
What age do you recommend kids going to Europe?
Going to Europe?
Yeah.
Well, have a horse and go well. I mean, you know, there's other ways to go to Europe. Like you can go and watch some of the best horse shows in the world. And like for Aachen, for instance, the crowd is allowed to watch the schooling, which is wonderful, but it also is a problem over there right now with the welfare issues. So, but to watch and be a spectator in Europe is mind-blowing. I mean, it's really, really mind-blowing. I can remember the first time I went over there, I went, this is not real. Like, this is like, it's going to a rock concert somewhere, you know, lights and, you know, everything going on. You know, like, I can remember riding Felix, one show we were at, and the whole trade fair was around the warm-up ring. And at the one end was a bouncy house for the kids. Well, that went over real well. And I said to Klaus, I can't. He goes, just go sideways. Half pass, half pass, half pass, half pass, half pass, half pass. And it was like, oh my gosh. But I mean, those kind of things happen over there. And we just, you know, we're always, shh, shh, don't move, don't move. And these horses really have to get used to some noise. When you start going to Europe, things happen. So I will say most audiences, like if you go to Aachen, they do not allow people to go up and down in the stands they let you go between rides, but not during a ride. They're very, you know, courteous that way, but you're going to hear a lot of screaming and laughing, and not laughing, but clapping after rides, and your horse has to get used to that too, because that's a big part of being a horse that can go in the big ring, is a horse that can handle all those noises and environments. And
if there's a minor mistake, the whole crowd goes,
oh, I know. And you want to say, like, I didn't know I had a mistake there. You really want to just say, oh, come on. It's so annoying. You're right. Oh. But, yeah.
So a really skittish horse.
Yeah.
Going into these huge rings and all this, do they ever get over it, or
they can? Yeah.
Eventually.
I think you have.
I'm riding one now. I have never ridden a skittish horse, and I have this pony thing that I'm riding.
Well, I think the best thing to do is like you try to get to, like, first start going to all different people's farms, just haul it around everywhere. Let it get used to traveling. Like just getting in a trailer and going away from home. Every time it'll be a little different experience, and you'll notice when it starts saying, oh, here, getting in the trailer again, off to another barn. You know, I mean, pretty soon they do. If they're gonna get over it, they will show signs that they're gonna get over it. And you know, you just have to put them in those environments and be patient. You can't hurry them in that moment either, you know, because that just kind of makes it. And if you think it's going to be a problem, then they already sense that. Right. So they know, they read us so well, it's crazy. Like you can.
Some don't. You're saying some don't. Can't.
No, some just are stellar. You know, they think they're pretty hot, and they just walk in the ring like, here I am, world. You know, and those are ones that usually end up being like some of your best horses. But Diddy Verdades was not that way. He was like I can remember when we were in Tryon for the games, that horse hated video cameras. I mean, it was not, hated them all the way through his career. But she got so tactful about kind of bending him a little more and just maybe cutting a little bit off. And, you know, he was so talented anyway. But, you know, he was always one that was a little bit, he was one that you had to either not put boots on him, and that's how it ended up being, because he got to knowing after he'd competed a while that you always took the boots off about 10 minutes before you go. Well, that made him, she almost get bucked off almost every single time we did that. So finally we said, no more boots, you can't do that, because he knows then, and he just gets so excited. But he was a hot tamale, really hot tamale, but he did it, he got through it. And she was amazing at how she piloted that horse around too. So it was, it was interesting. But yeah, there are horses that still have a little nerves in there. And then it just takes, getting that bond together with your horse and saying, hey, I got you, bud. I'm not going to put you in harm. Yeah. Just patience. I know. You'll know when it's time to give up on that, but I don't think you're probably even close to that yet.
This is all new. This is like a month in.
Oh, so yeah, you got years.
I'm just trying to stay on right now.
Oh, okay. Well, they have also some riders that do those kind of things for you. There's a lot of people.
He doesn't do anything bad. He's just,
Okay. All right.
Behind, he'll just like whip around.
Okay.
He's a little guy.
Okay. Yeah.
Talk about that initiative that was to do with physical fitness, but I think there's some research involved. That's Juliana.
Yeah. Yes. Actually, Andy Thomas, they couldn't keep him hired because he wasn't, because of the safe sport and everything, he wasn't licensed here in the United States, so he couldn't come. But Andy's coming back this weekend. He's doing a course on the 3rd at the Fairfield. I don't know if it's full, but he's bringing in a saddle fitter. He's got all the technology that they're going to put up on the screens, and it's a full day in classroom. And then the second day is at Betsy Giuliano's, where he's going to have some demo riders, and I'll be telling him what I see, and then he tells me how he thinks he can fix it, and he'll take the riders off the horse and work with them, and then we get back on and we kind of work together like that. But that, I can't emphasize that enough, because, you always think, he said that if you look at your two gloves and you notice that one's always worn out more than the other, do you think that's your strong or your weak side? Anybody? You're right, it's your weak side. And so you're usually trying to hold on with that. If your boot's worn on one, you're holding on with that leg. You're not really symmetrical, and that right there affects the way your horse goes. So it's all, they've done so much, and it all started for Britain before the London Games. They started that research, and they had a saddle pad that was made with all this technology in it to notice the pressure points and where horses needed to be fitted better, and they did their research, and it paid off. And they, whether they've continued on that path, I don't know, but it certainly is something that I loved working with Andy, and I was so sad when he left, because we had a real thing going about. I'd say, Andy, I've got a rider. I don't quite know what to say. I can say lean over to this, but it's not working, And he comes and he puts a long band, like from your shoulder all the way down to your heel on the other side. Sure enough, you sit right in the middle, real straight, and then he lets you ride in it for just a few minutes, and then he takes it off. And because he's fired up whatever muscle in your butt or wherever, and you get back without that strap on, and all of a sudden you're riding in the middle. It's like voodoo. It really is. It's amazing to watch what can happen in that kind of a session. So yeah, it's really something that, and it's, of course, we don't have enough of those people. We have some really good people that go around and work with the riders that do good body work and help in that regard, and that's important, that you work on your weaknesses. You can go to a gym, but that won't help that. You can't just make something stronger. It's actually what muscle isn't firing up, what's lacking in that. So it's really an interesting concept for sure.
If you're looking for that, Evangeline doing right here.
But that's, we need people like you around, because I'm right?
Yeah, I'm Mary Wanless biomechanics coach. So
Okay.
like that teaching awareness, and I think for all the young riders it's such a big deal, because a lot of people on the horses they are not aware of it, like you're saying. They don't know which hands
No.
or which sequence.
Yeah, no, for sure. So it is a, like I said, people that are doing it for fun, you don't need to do all that. But if you just want to be getting better, it's interesting. Like, it's really interesting to find out, okay, God, I didn't realize that was what was going on. And now they give you an exercise before you get on the horse to do, and it helps. So it's great if you can find somebody that'll help you like that, for sure. It's worked for all of us, that's for sure. A little too late for me. I was already broken, but oh well. Okay, you guys, shoot some more questions, or tell me what you want me to talk about, or...
I have a question. Do you have a favorite show venue in the U.S.? Like a place that you love to go, or was there a place that you love to go as a competitor, or is there a place now that you love to go, whether it's the location or the actual showgrounds themselves?
I would say right now, I would say Ocala's got probably the better environment if you can go in the big ring there. I think it's a pretty good situation there, and it's a nice setup. It's big and comfortable, and the horses seem happy there. And yeah, I think for right now, although Thermal has done a beautiful job in California, it's just sad they don't have the numbers. You know, they have 2 in a Grand Prix if they're lucky, and the national show isn't even that big. And I was talking to Thomas about it because the first year they did it, and it's also a big jumper event venue, so it's not like the place is going to not be used. But when they put on all these shows for dressage, so these riders on the West Coast could qualify, well, some of them came here. So then, you know, now they've got, like he said, nobody's really there that much. There's Stefan and like Anna Buffini, but I mean, there's really not a lot of the top riders that stay there now. Like Jan moved. I mean, there's a lot of, you know, I was a West Coaster, so, you know, that's where my home base was. So, yeah, it's just different. You know, it's just not the same there now. Del Mar used to be my most favorite. It was a blast. But, and that's changed too. Again, the footing's not really good enough, and that's part of the problems with a lot of the events. That's why I really appreciate Ocala. They have really, really good footing. And I have to say, I'm very happy they did something to the footing here this year. They needed it. It needed to be refreshed desperately. If you had horses going very long on that, they were sore in their feet, for sure. It was really too hard. So I was very thankful when I heard they did that.
What are your thoughts on like a proper warm-up, and do you like separate your ride, like proper warm-up, work phase, and then do you stretch your horses down also at the end as like a cool down?
So I like my riders usually will get out on their horses and they'll just do a little stretch. They might pick them up for a minute, but they don't do much of their work there. By the time, it depends what level you're doing. By the time you're at Grand Prix, you shouldn't need more than 20 minutes, period. And if you do, then you're just wasting your horse. You know, you got to know what you really need to school, you know, and if you don't, you should never feel like, oh, if I don't ride the entire test before I go, I won't feel ready. Then you're not ready. But so I like the horses to get out in the mornings for sure. I think it's important that they get out of those stalls and move around. And then every horse is an individual. You know, as far as the warm-up you would choose for one horse isn't going to be the one that you choose for the other. Like for instance, Stefan likes to do his work in the morning, and then he walks, picks up the reins a little bit, and then goes for his horse. That works best. Everybody else does it the other way. They kind of, you know, do their warm-up a little bit in the morning, just getting them out, moving around. And then they work on, you know, whether it's a half pass or a pirouette, changes, whatever. And then just know, I always say you could ride it 500 times, and even if it's not right, you can't ride it 600 times. You just have to say, it'll happen in the ring. And more times than not, if you just don't get hung up on it, then you go down the center line and it will work usually. But if you go long enough and it gets in your mind, it's probably going to be a problem. So I really try not to let the riders go there, you know, because it's sometimes just the nerves. It's not that it's ever a problem. So I would say that, and I do not stretch them down before they go in the ring. Because I think you've got that horse in a prime place, and especially if you haven't worked more than 20 minutes, you go with that right then. You know, like go with it when it's really ready and fired up, and take advantage of that.
Oh, you're talking about them after?
But in competition. I'm sorry?
Do you ever stretch them then after the season?
Oh gosh, yes. The riders come out and go around the ring and stretch them for sure. Yeah, that's important. But not like before they go in the ring, but after they come out for sure. Yeah. Any more stories you want to hear, or? Well, thank you all for coming. Oh, I got one more question. I would say Aachen is one of the top. although, like I said, because of the welfare issues going on, it's not quite as fun as it used to be. So it's a sad state of affairs, but
How did you like Oldenburg? I saw you write
in Sweden?
Oldenburg.
Oh, Oldenburg, yes, it's a lovely show too. They're all, I mean, Stuttgart was amazing, you know what I mean? But there's so many beautiful venues in Europe. It's hard to say, because I mean they do it right, you know. They have so many sponsors, so everything's done at the top, you know. Oh, we're gonna draw. I think we're drawing something.